The mug slipped from my fingers and shattered on the kitchen tiles. My father's voice thundered from across the room, shaking the very air. "What have you done, Jade? Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us what would you do in this situation. Be honest. Tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let us begin." I did not move. I did not cry. I just stood there, back straight, hand resting gently on my barely there belly. "I am pregnant," I said calmly. My voice did not shake. Not this time. The silence that followed was deafening. My mother Vivian froze mid-step at the bottom of the staircase. Her face pale, her hands still wet from folding laundry, trembled. You just turned 19? Are you insane?" My father stepped closer, his jaw clenched so tight the veins in his neck looked like they would burst. "Who is it? Some dropout? Some stranger you met at a gas station?" He was breathing hard, like my words had taken the oxygen from his lungs. "His name does not matter," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "What matters is I love my child, and I am keeping it." He let out a bitter, guttural laugh. "You have destroyed your life, Jade. We gave you everything, a home, a future, a college fund, and you threw it all away for this." My chest ached, but I did not flinch. I did not throw anything away. "You are just angry you cannot control me anymore." That did it. "Get out," he roared. "Pack your things. You want to play adult? Fine. Live like one." I turned to my mother for a second. I thought she might defend me, but she did not. She just shook her head, whispering, "You are such a disappointment, like I had murdered someone." And that was it. They did not ask who the father was. They did not ask what support I had. They did not ask if I was okay. They just kicked me out. No one knew I had already signed my lease on a small studio apartment across town. No one knew I had my own job, and certainly no one knew the father of my baby was not some loser. He was someone they would not believe even if I told them. I left with nothing but a duffel bag and a fire inside me. I did not cry. I did not scream. I smiled because I knew something they did not. And 17 years later, when they would stand in my driveway, staring into the eyes of their grandson for the first time, they would finally understand the price of throwing me away, and their faces would go pale when they saw who I had become. The first night in my new apartment was cold. No heat, no furniture, just a second-hand mattress on the floor, and a cracked window that whistled every time the wind passed. I sat on that floor with a can of soup and a silent phone, no calls from friends, not even a text from my mom. I was not shocked. I had become the embarrassment, the daughter who threw her life away. But I was not broken, not yet, because I still had him, my baby, and I had a job. 4 weeks before everything exploded, I had secretly taken a receptionist position at a private medical clinic just outside Austin. The pay was not great, but the doctor who hired me, Dr. Martinez, treated me like a person. He did not care that I had just turned 19 or that I was pregnant. He just said, "If you are willing to work hard, you have got a place here." So I showed up every morning at 6:45 a.m. and stayed till after close. My belly grew. My resolve did too. No handouts, no pity. At night I studied accounting, business law, economics, whatever free courses I could find online. I was not just going to survive, I was going to become someone they would never see coming. I stopped checking my old social media, watching my cousin Taylor post graduation photos, while my mom liked every picture hurt more than I admitted. I muted everything. At 8 months pregnant, I worked at the clinic desk during the day and answered phones for a call center at night. One day I collapsed outside the bus stop. I had not eaten, had not slept. I was barely 21 years old and already drowning. Dr. Martinez found me outside, shivering, crying quietly and holding my stomach. He called a nurse, canceled his patients, and sat beside me. "You okay, Jade?" "No," I whispered, "but I will be." He did not ask questions, he just nodded. Then he handed me something, a letter of recommendation. "Give this to her," he said. "My sister. She runs the finance office at Riverside Medical HQ." I stared at him. "Why are you helping me?" He smiled. "Because you remind me of someone I once gave up on." I do not make that mistake twice. That moment changed my life. 3 months later, I had my son Caleb. I held him in my arms and cried harder than I ever had, not because I was scared, not because I felt alone, but because this beautiful boy with his curious eyes and tiny fists made every minute of struggle worth it. And from that day forward, I swore he will never feel unwanted, not like I did. What came next was years of sacrifice, hunger, sleepless nights, and a plan, because if they thought I would disappear, they had no idea who I was becoming. I did not have a roadmap, just a baby boy, a part-time job, and a burning determination they never expected from the girl they kicked out. Caleb was barely 3 months old when I started working nights again, this time remotely, typing reports and sorting billing records for Riverside Medical's finance office. Dr. Martinez's sister Isabella gave me a shot. She did not hand me a title or a salary I did not earn. She just said, "Do not miss deadlines, do not make excuses, and do not wait for anyone to save you." And I did not. I breastfed Caleb in between midnight reports, took data entry jobs on the weekends, taught myself how to manage budgets, audit spreadsheets, and write contracts. I even started dressing differently when I went into the office. Clean-fitted blazers I found at thrift stores, low-heeled shoes, and quiet confidence. People stopped looking at me like a teenage mistake. They started treating me like a woman with purpose. By the time Caleb turned 3, I had moved us into a small townhouse near the edge of San Marcos. Nothing fancy, but it was ours. A place with clean floors, a small yard, and a door no one could kick me out of. I framed a picture of Caleb's first birthday and placed it by the entryway. Every time I came home after a long day, it reminded me why I never gave up. Meanwhile, my parents' silence, no calls, no letters, no attempt to find out if I was alive. But I knew through other channels, through gossip and holiday newsletters my aunt would email without thinking, that their lives went on as if I never existed. My younger cousin got into Texas A&M, my brother married a corporate lawyer, and every post, every family gathering looked polished and proud. No one mentioned me, I was the closed chapter. Until one day, the chapter reopened itself. I was 28, sitting in a meeting with Isabella and 2 executives from Riverside's regional division, when she slid a folder across the table. "We are launching a new division," she said. "You have been working in the shadows long enough, Jade. It is time you took charge." I blinked. Took charge? How? She smiled. "You are being promoted head of operations, starting salary $162,000, full benefits. You will lead a team of 15, and yes, Caleb can stay at the in-office daycare." I covered my mouth and stared down at the offer. I could not speak. "You have earned every cent of this," she said, leaning in. "And before you even think of saying no, do not. We need someone like you, and so does Caleb." The moment I walked out of that office, I called Caleb's school, told them I would be picking him up early, and drove straight there. He was 9 now, wild brown curls, sharp blue eyes, and the same smile that used to keep me going through graveyard shifts. "Where are we going?" he asked, buckling his seatbelt. "Home," I said, smiling, "our new home." That night, I signed a lease for a property in the historic district, 4 bedrooms, high ceilings, a garden in the back. I paid in full, no mortgage. But I was not finished yet, because there was one part of my story I had not written yet. I had kept Caleb's father a secret from everyone, even Caleb, but not because he was dangerous or shameful, because he had trusted me with privacy. You see, the man I had fallen in love with all those years ago was not some teenage fling. He was a first-year med resident from Baylor, doing rotations at the clinic where I worked. We met once, shared something real, but his family disapproved of me, poor young alone. He moved to Denver 3 weeks later, and when I told him I was pregnant, he did something I will never forget. He offered money. I said no and never called again, because I did not want Caleb to be a transaction. I wanted him to be mine. Now 17 years had passed since my parents threw me out, and suddenly last winter, a letter arrived at my office front desk. It was from them, my mother's handwriting shaky, almost unreadable. "Jade, your cousin told us you live nearby. We did not know how to reach you. We would like to see you and meet your son. Please, if you are willing to talk." I sat in my office chair for almost an hour, just staring at that envelope. I did not cry. I did not rage. I just felt something cold, not because they were reaching out, but because they had no idea what they were about to walk into. And when I invited them to my home the following Saturday, I did not warn them. I did not tell them what I did for a living. I did not mention the house or Caleb's perfect manners or the life I built with the very hands they said were only meant for failure because I wanted them to see it, to walk through the very same door they slammed in my face and go pale with regret. I heard their car pull up 12 minutes early. Of course they were early. My father, Kenneth Carter, was the kind of man who liked to control every moment of his own narrative, the kind who wanted to arrive rather than be received. And now, 17 years later, he was standing on my porch with my mother beside him, both dressed like they were visiting a country club, not the daughter they disowned. I saw them through the tall window beside the door. My mother clutched her purse tight, her eyes scanning the garden, the porch swing, the polished brick steps. Her mouth moved slightly, whispering something to him, maybe a warning, maybe a prayer. I opened the door before they knocked. My father stiffened. My mother's jaw dropped slightly. I had changed so much I could see it confused them. I was not a scared girl in a hoodie dragging a duffel bag across the lawn anymore. I stood taller, sharper, confident without needing to pretend. My tailored cream blouse, black slacks, and the soft pearl necklace Caleb bought me on my last birthday said everything they needed to know before I ever opened my mouth. "Jade," my mother breathed. Her voice was soft, careful. "Come in," I said, stepping aside. They did not know how to react. The house was quiet, warm, elegant. Light spilled through sheer curtains, glowing over hardwood floors and hand-framed photos lining the walls. Everything smelled faintly of fresh coffee and lavender. "Nice place," my father muttered, but it was not a compliment, it was confusion. How? How could she afford this? How did she get here without us? I did not answer the question he did not ask. "Caleb's upstairs. He will be down in a minute." They stood in the center of my living room, eyes darting around like strangers in a museum, terrified they would bump into something too expensive to touch. "I was not sure you would respond," I said. My mother looked at me. She blinked twice, and then she said it. "We were wrong." I stayed silent. "We thought we were protecting you," she continued. "We thought if we were hard, you would change. We did not know you would actually leave." "That was the point," I said quietly. There was no venom in my voice, no sarcasm, just truth. My father shifted uncomfortably, crossing his arms. "You were just a kid. You had no plan. I had a child," I interrupted, "and a job and a spine." He looked away. The silence between us stretched, thick with 17 years of everything unsaid. And then, footsteps on the stairs. Caleb appeared, dressed in his pressed navy blue sweater and jeans, his hair combed, his expression calm and curious. He was tall for his age, broad-shouldered, kind-eyed. He looked like someone you would trust. He looked like someone who had been loved deeply, fully, and without condition. "Caleb," I said, "these are your grandparents." He blinked, then walked down the last step and stood beside me. "Hi," he said simply. My mother's hand went to her mouth. Kenneth took half a step forward, his lips parting. But what hit them was not just his resemblance to me. It was the photographs he carried in his hand, ones he had pulled from the cabinet while they stood there. He handed one to my mother. It was Caleb standing beside a tall man in a white coat. "That is my dad," he said proudly. "He is a cardiovascular surgeon in Denver. He visits during the summers and sends me books every month." My mother nearly dropped the photo. And then, before they could say anything, Caleb pulled another frame from the cabinet and held it out. It was me standing behind a podium with the Riverside Medical logo, surrounded by a board of directors. "Mom is the head of operations," Caleb said with a small smile. "She runs everything. That is when it happened." My father's face dropped visibly, audibly, like the air had been punched out of his lungs. He stumbled back a half step, his hand gripping the back of the couch. "You," he whispered, "you built all this." I looked at him. My voice was calm, but beneath it was every sleepless night, every insult, every lonely birthday, every moment they thought I would not make it. No, I said. I built myself. The room was so quiet you could hear the wind brush against the windows. My father had not sat down. He could not, his pride would not let him, and his legs looked too weak to hold the weight of what he was seeing. My mother, still clutching the photo of Caleb and his father, slowly lowered herself onto the edge of the couch, her lips parted, like she wanted to speak, but nothing came out. Caleb stood calmly beside me, folding his hands like the well-mannered good young man he was. He did not look confused, he did not look afraid, he looked like he understood. He had always known that the two people standing in his mother's living room had chosen to be outsiders in his life, and now they were standing in a house they did not build, looking at a boy they did not raise, and a woman they had tried to erase. My father finally cleared his throat. I did not know you were in contact with him, with the boy's father. I was not, I replied, not for a long time. He wanted to be there, but I told him no. I wanted Caleb to grow up knowing peace, safety, no broken promises. When Caleb turned 11, I let them meet, slowly, on my conditions. My mother spoke then, her voice shaking. He is handsome, Jade. Thank you, I said softly. She looked at me with tears in her eyes. We made a wrong choice. I did not respond, because the words were too late. My father suddenly burst out, his voice rising, not with anger but begging. You could have called. You could have come back. We would have helped. No, you would not have. I cut in firmly. You told me to leave. You did not ask if I had a plan. You did not even ask if I was safe. You believed the worst and made sure I knew I was not loved. My voice broke then. The years caught up to me, not in weakness, but in closure. You kicked out your daughter on the worst day of her life, and now you want to sit on the couch she bought and pretend none of it happened. My mother started to cry. I am sorry, she whispered. I am sorry for everything. I looked down at her, and for the first time in 17 years, I felt nothing. Not hate, not anger, just peace. I nodded slowly. I forgave you a long time ago, I said, but that does not mean we go back. My father looked shocked. Jade, this house has no room for regret, Dad. I raised a boy who knows how to respect women, who knows love is not based on conditions. I became the woman you did not believe I could be, and now you are standing in my home, breathing air I worked hard for, looking at a life I struggled for. I turned to Caleb. Go get your coat, sweetheart. We are going to the bookstore. He nodded and quietly walked upstairs, his footsteps light as feathers. My mother looked up, wiping her tears. Will we see you again? She asked. I paused. Then I looked her straight in the eyes. That depends, I said, on whether you want to meet your grandson or keep pretending the past never happened, and with that, I walked them to the door. They stood there for a moment, silent, shocked, still pale. I did not hug them, I did not say goodbye. I just closed the door gently behind them, and for the first time in 17 years, it was me who stood on the inside of the house with everything they once thought I would never have.